Hi friends! I was so excited to get my YouTube channel started that I already have a second video for you because I just couldn't wait. Today I will be using Bao Hong Academy watercolor paper, and I love doing botanical art, so I got this book at Barnes & Noble of botanical art from the Renaissance era, and it's just a beautiful book full of illustrations and all different kinds of plants, fruits, just wonderful things. So I landed on this cherry branch from a cherry tree that I thought was really beautiful, and I thought that it looked quite simple as well, so I decided to paint that today. I liked it because it's got a really simple color palette. You can see there's reds and greens and then just some different tones of golden yellow and orange in it as well. Just really simple color palette and really beautiful illustration that I thought would be easy and fun to recreate. So let's get started. Today I am using just some simple brushes. I think I started out with these 3 brushes, but I only ended up using 1. I tend to get so into the painting process that I kind of forget that everything around me exists, and so I just ended up using 1 brush. I am using my Beam Paintstones again today. They are just such a joy to work with, and they have the perfect color palette. So the first color is Butter. The next color I'm using is Spring Green, Cherry Magenta, which I thought was perfect for today's project. Next one is Boreal, and then Mars Violet, Pumpkin, and Cub Brown. These are all just a beautiful mix of colors. In particular, my favorite is Mars Violet. It's kind of like a reddish, purplish, brown color, but it has lots of different pigments in it that make it very versatile when mixed with other colors. So let's get started. I am beginning with kind of just simple materials, my cup of water and my paper towel and my brushes, and I am starting with the Cub Brown color, and I'm just going to do a nice little tree branch first. Just make a nice little curve with the tree branch and some stems coming off of it to attach the leaves to. I'm using the photograph as a reference, but I'm not trying to exactly replicate it because I find that that just complicates the process. So I've just put some nice little branches, some vines or whatever coming out from the tree. The next color I'm choosing is Spring Green, and I'm going to just add the vines that the cherries are dropping from on the tree branch. So once again, I'm not trying to exactly replicate anything, just kind of trying to make it look like a nice composition that is pleasing to the eye. And I've got the vines coming down just in little tendrils, kind of branching off from one another, and using really light strokes. I've got a pretty small brush here. I think it's a size 6. You can always add more of these later, so just start with enough to kind of get you started in the process, and then we move on to the leaves and the cherries, which is the really exciting part. And once we're done with that, I'm going to grab the Boreal paint stone. It is just a nice medium green color. It's really great for botanicals and florals. It has a very light wash that you can build to make it darker and darker, which I think is great. It allows me a lot of versatility. So I'm just going to add leaves in different places, kind of just randomly, make it look as natural as possible and just have fun with it. Leaves don't have to be perfect. You just kind of make shapes, and if you look at leaves in the wild, they are all curled up, they're rolled, they're ripped, they have holes in them. They're kind of just very natural, and so when I paint leaves, I just kind of relax and let the kind of shapes form themselves. And it took a lot of practice to get to this point. Leaves used to really trouble me, but anyway, now I have a lot of fun with them. So just take your time and practice, and if they're not coming out how you want, that's okay. It just takes time. As you can see, I'm adding quite a few leaves, just kind of building them up slowly, taking my time, making sure everything looks full but not overcomplicated. And I'm also adding at the base of the leaves where they come out of the tree branch, just some little stems and things to just add that natural quality to it. Alright, well, I'm done with the leaves for now, so I'm going to start painting the cherries. I want to start with the lightest color that I chose and then kind of build up the darker tones from there. So I'm starting with the butter yellow paint stone, and I'm just kind of sorry you have to see my head in so many of these shots. I didn't realize it was showing, but anyway, I'm just adding little circles on the ends of these vines, and I'm making sure to leave a tiny bit of white space in the middle just for that highlight on the cherry. I'm also using the pumpkin to just add a tiny little bit of a shadow on the cherry. So I'm mostly doing the butter yellow color and then adding just a little bit of the pumpkin orange as well. And now I'm going to move on to the cherry magenta. I just wanted a couple light colored ones that look like they weren't quite ripe yet, and the cherry magenta is going to be the ones that are nice and ripe and ready to be picked. So I'm gonna start just doing the same thing, making circles. It's kind of a little more pink than I wanted, so later on I'm going to use the Mars Violet, which is kind of like a reddish brown, to make them darker. So this is the really fun part where you get to concentrate on making the cherries look just very natural. Try to make them different sizes, kind of slightly irregular shapes, some little bumps here and there. And make sure to just leave a little white space in case you need it later for the highlight. This is something that was really difficult for me when I first started painting with watercolor, is leaving white space, but it does get easier the more you practice. I wanted to fill every single inch of the page with something. And I've learned to really use nuance and to really think about my composition and not have to use every single inch of the paper. And that really adds a nice balance to your painting. So I'm just continuing with the cherry magenta right now. It's kind of this nice darker pink color, just kind of making sure that I'm varying the cherries in size and also where they land on the picture. Something that I struggled with composition early on when I started was I had everything lined up in a straight line and it just didn't look natural. So I've gotten better at that, at kind of varying the placement of things. So now I am starting to use the Mars Violet. It's just that darker brownish red color, and I'm just adding that to kind of take away the very bright pink tone of the cherry magenta. So I'm adding that in along with the pumpkin color, and just kind of the most important thing is just that there's variation in the color, especially when it comes to fruit. If you look at a piece of fruit, it's not all one color. It has, tons of variations where the sun hit it when it was ripening on the vine, or, the curve of it, there's a highlight. And so it takes practice, but experimentation is how you're going to learn. So just experiment with different saturations of color, different shades of the same, color family, all of those things that just take a little bit of time and practice and work. So I added in the Mars Violet where I wanted to, just to darken some of those cherries. And now I'm going back in and I'm going to add the butter yellow to some places as well, just to kind of add those splashes of color into the cherries. And the butter yellow is actually working really well as a highlight on these darker cherries. I'm adding it in while the color is still wet on the paper so that it's just blending right in. There are no hard lines or anything like that. It's just gonna soak right into the other color and make a perfect blend, which is why I love watercolor so much. It's just fun to watch the colors kind of meld together and make a whole new color. So I'm really enjoying this one. Now I'm adding some cherries that are the full color of Mars Violet, not blended with anything, and you can see just how brown this color is. It's a beautiful, beautiful brownish purplish red, and just kind of wanted to add some variation in color and make it look like, you know, maybe they're on the vine too long and they got a little too ripe. I'm also using the Mars Violet to just add in some little details on the branch, kind of just add some variation in color so the branch just isn't, you know, a straight brown. I just want to add some little touches that kind of bring in detail, because when you look at a plant, I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of little vines and sticks and everything coming out of the branch, and so I just want to give a little atmosphere to the piece and just you know, it's hard to know sometimes, especially with art, when to continue and when to stop, and so that's why it's good to just take your time and keep stepping back and looking at the piece and say, could this use a little more detail, or should I maybe take a break and come back to it later? The other important thing to note with watercolor is that you can remove pigment if there is too much on your paper in a spot that you don't want it. Just add some clean water to your brush and kind of scoop out a little bit of that pigment and wipe it on a clean paper towel, and you'll have these empty spaces where it's lighter. You can add in your highlights and all of that, and it looks really soft and pretty. For example, some of these cherries I thought looked a little dark and a little flat, so I'm just taking the small brush with a little bit of clean water on there and just adding some highlights by removing some of the pigment on the cherries, and I'm doing it on a curve so that, of course, it looks round, and just having fun kind of looking over everything and seeing the small details. Now I'm adding some spring green into the leaves, just because I thought the leaves looked a little flat, and it's nice to have some lighter and some darker tones in there. So the spring green just adds a really beautiful yellowy green color to the leaf, makes it look more dimensional. Once I was happy with how the leaves were looking with the yellow detail added in, I added a higher concentration of the darker green color to some of them, just to add some depth and variation. You can see how much of a difference it makes just to add those lights and darks in the piece and make sure that there are different things in the composition to attract the eye to different parts and make it look very natural. So now that we're done with the leaves, I think it's complete and I'm really happy with the way it's looking. So I think I'm going to call it good. I always have the tendency to want to add more and more and more to it, but I think it's actually looking really beautiful and I'm happy with the way it turned out. So now the final touch is to sign my artwork, and I'm really happy with this one. I love obviously doing fruit and flowers, but I've never done a cherry tree before, and so this was a really fun project, and I hope you enjoyed painting along with me. Here is the final result. I'm really happy with the different shades of color in the cherries. So there you go. Let me know if you try this project. I'd love to see your results, and like and subscribe if you want to see more.